How to stop negative thinking with Buddhist wisdom. Introduction. The power of thought. Have you ever felt trapped by your own thoughts? Like a constant loop of worries, doubts, and fears playing over and over in your mind? Imagine if every thought you had was like a brushstroke on the canvas of your life. Would you paint a masterpiece of peace and happiness? Or would your mind be filled with storms of negativity? In Buddhism, thoughts are not just fleeting ideas, they are powerful seeds that shape our reality. Just as a small seed can grow into a towering tree, a single thought, whether positive or negative, can take root and influence our emotions, actions, and even our destiny. Negative thinking isn't just an occasional nuisance, it can become a habit. A pattern that traps us in cycles of suffering, stress, and unhappiness. But what if you had the ability to change this? What if you could train your mind, just as a gardener tends to their garden, removing weeds and nurturing healthy, vibrant growth? The good news is, Buddhist wisdom offers profound yet practical tools to help us break free from negativity and cultivate a sense of inner peace, resilience, and clarity. So, how do we stop negative thinking and reshape our minds for a more peaceful, fulfilling life? Let's explore the wisdom of the Buddha and discover how we can transform our thoughts to transform our reality. Chapter 1. The nature of negative thinking. Have you ever noticed how one small negative thought can spiral into an entire storm of worry and stress? Imagine this. You receive a single critical comment from your boss, and suddenly, your mind starts replaying it on loop, making you question your abilities, your performance, and even your self-worth. Or maybe you make a minor mistake, something insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but somehow, your brain convinces you that you're failing at life. This isn't just bad luck or personal weakness, it's how our brains have been wired for survival. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors faced real, physical threats, predators in the wild, scarcity of food, or hostile tribes. Those who were hyper-aware of dangers and worst-case scenarios had a better chance of surviving. Their ability to focus on potential threats helped them stay alert and alive. This is what scientists call the negativity bias, a deeply ingrained tendency for our minds to focus more on negative experiences than positive ones. However, in today's world, most of us are no longer running from wild animals or fighting for survival in the same way. Our threats now come in different forms: stressful deadlines, social comparisons, financial concerns, or self-doubt. But the problem is, our brains still treat these modern challenges as life or death situations. As a result, we dwell on our worries, replay painful memories, and anticipate future failures, all of which only lead to more stress, anxiety, and unhappiness. Buddhist perspective. The mind as a garden. Buddhism offers a profound insight. Suffering does not arise from external events, but from our reaction to them. The way we interpret and respond to experiences determines whether we feel peace or distress. Think about this. Two people are stuck in the same traffic jam. One is gripping the steering wheel, honking angrily, feeling frustrated and impatient. The other takes a deep breath, turns on some music, and accepts the delay as an opportunity to relax. The situation is the same, but their emotional experiences are completely different. Why? Because their minds interpret the event differently. The Buddha compared the mind to a garden. If we constantly plant and nurture seeds of anger, fear, and resentment, those emotions will grow stronger and eventually take over. We become prisoners of our own negativity. But if we consciously cultivate gratitude, compassion, and wisdom, our inner world transforms into a place of peace and clarity. Let's say you receive harsh criticism from someone. Your first instinct might be to react defensively or feel deeply hurt. But what if, instead of letting negativity take root, you pause and ask yourself, is there something valuable I can learn from this? Does this criticism truly define me? Or is it just one person's perspective? Is this thought helping me or hurting me? By shifting our perspective, we stop feeding negative thoughts and create space for more constructive, peaceful thinking, breaking free from negative thinking. The good news is that just like a garden can be cultivated, so can our minds. We are not doomed to be prisoners of negativity. With mindfulness and awareness, we can train ourselves to recognize harmful thought patterns and gently let them go. A practical Buddhist technique for this is mindful observation. When a negative thought arises, Instead of getting caught up in it, try to observe it like an outsider. Imagine it as a passing cloud in the sky, or a leaf floating down a river. You don't have to hold onto it or believe it. Just acknowledge its presence and let it drift away. Over time, by practicing mindfulness and replacing harmful thoughts with more constructive ones, we shift the way our mind operates. We become less reactive, more at peace, and ultimately, freer. The mind is not our enemy, it is simply a tool. And like any tool, it can be sharpened, refined, and used wisely. By understanding the nature of negative thinking and applying Buddhist wisdom, we can transform our inner world, one thought at a time. Chapter 2. Mindfulness. The key to transformation. Have you ever felt trapped by your own thoughts, as if they had complete control over your mood and actions? Imagine waking up in the morning, and the first thought that crosses your mind is, "Today is going to be a terrible day." Before anything has even happened, your mind has already set the tone for negativity. Or maybe someone makes a passing comment that you interpret as criticism. And suddenly, you can't stop replaying it in your head, feeling hurt, angry, or insecure. But what if I told you that these thoughts are not you? What if you could observe them without letting them control your emotions or decisions? This is where mindfulness comes in. It is one of the most powerful tools for breaking free from the cycle of negative thinking. Observing thoughts without attachment. Mindfulness, at its core, is the practice of being fully present, aware of your thoughts, emotions, and surroundings without getting lost in them. One of the biggest mistakes we make is believing that every thought we have is true or important. But in reality, our minds generate all sorts of thoughts, many of which are random, irrational, or even misleading. Think of it this way: just because a thought appears in your mind does not mean you have to believe it, follow it, or let it define you. A negative thought is just a thought. It does not have power unless you give it power. For example, imagine you are walking in a park, and suddenly a thought arises, "I am not good enough." If you are unaware, you might instantly accept this thought as the truth and start feeling discouraged or depressed. But with mindfulness, you can take a step back and simply observe it. Here's that old self-doubt again. This is just a thought passing through, not a fact. I don't have to believe this thought. When we watch our thoughts with detachment, they lose their grip on us. Instead of getting carried away by every passing worry, fear, or self-criticism, we can choose which thoughts to engage with and which to let go. The mind is the sky, thoughts as passing clouds. A beautiful Buddhist analogy compares the mind to the vast, open sky and thoughts to passing clouds. No matter how dark or stormy the clouds may seem, the sky itself remains unchanged, expansive, untouched, and unshaken. Similarly, no matter how negative or troubling our thoughts may become, our true nature, the peaceful, aware self beneath those thoughts, remains unchanged. We are not our thoughts, we are the observer of our thoughts. Imagine sitting by a river, watching leaves float by. Some leaves are bright and beautiful, others are dark and withered. Mindfulness teaches us that instead of reaching out and grabbing every leaf, holding on to every thought, we can simply watch them drift past. Next time you feel overwhelmed by negative thinking, try this simple mindfulness exercise. 1. Pause. Stop whatever you're doing and take a deep breath. 2. Observe. Notice the thoughts passing through your mind. Don't judge them, just observe. 3. Label. Gently name them: worry, self-doubt, anger. 4. Let go. Imagine them floating away like clouds or drifting down a river. Mindfulness in everyday life. The beauty of mindfulness is that it can be practiced anywhere, at any time. You don't need to meditate for hours in a monastery. You can practice mindfulness while drinking your morning tea, walking in nature, or even doing the dishes. For example, if you're feeling stressed at work, take a moment to notice your breath and bring your attention back to the present. If a negative thought arises, instead of engaging with it, simply acknowledge it and let it go. If you're stuck in traffic, instead of getting frustrated, take it as an opportunity to observe your surroundings and practice patience. With consistent practice, mindfulness rewires the brain to be less reactive, more peaceful, and more present. The more we cultivate awareness, the less power negativity has over us. Instead of being at the mercy of our thoughts, we become the masters of our own minds. At the heart of Buddhist wisdom is this truth: suffering is not caused by what happens to us, but by how we perceive and respond to it. And with mindfulness, we gain the ability to respond with clarity, peace, and wisdom. So, the next time negative thoughts arise, remember, you are the sky, not the clouds. Let them pass, and reclaim your inner peace. Chapter 3. The Practice of Meditation. Cultivating a Positive Mind. If there were a single practice that could transform your mind, bring you inner peace, and help you break free from negative thinking, would you be willing to try it? Meditation is that practice. In Buddhism, meditation is not just a method for relaxation, it is a tool for mental purification. The Buddha himself practiced and taught meditation as a way to understand the nature of the mind, overcome suffering, and cultivate a deep, unshakable peace. Our minds are like a garden. Through meditation, we learn to pull out the weeds of negativity and plant seeds of wisdom, kindness, and joy. Among the many forms of meditation, one of the most powerful for overcoming negative thinking is loving kindness meditation, also known as metta bhavana. This practice directly counteracts negativity, replacing resentment, anger, and self-criticism with feelings of love, compassion, and peace. How loving kindness meditation works. The practice of metta meditation is simple yet deeply transformative. It involves silently repeating phrases of goodwill, first for yourself, then gradually expanding your kindness outward to others. The process usually follows these steps. 1. Begin with yourself. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath, and silently repeat, "May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be free from suffering." At first, this might feel strange or even difficult, especially if you are used to self-criticism. But with time, it begins to soften the heart and dissolve inner negativity. 2. Extend to a loved one. Think of someone you care deeply about, maybe a family member, a close friend, or a mentor. Repeat, "May they be happy. May they be free from suffering." 3. Extend to a neutral person. Bring to mind someone you interact with but don't have strong feelings for, like a coworker or a barista at your favorite cafe. Repeat the same phrases for them. 4. Extend to someone difficult. This is where the practice becomes truly powerful. Think of someone you struggle with, perhaps a person who has hurt you or whom you find frustrating. Instead of feeding anger or resentment, practice saying, "May they be happy. May they be free from suffering." At first, this might feel unnatural or even impossible. But over time, it helps break the cycle of negativity and retrain the mind to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. 5. Extend to all beings. Finally, expand your goodwill to the entire world. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. How this transforms the mind. At first glance, this may seem like a simple exercise, but scientific research shows that loving kindness meditation actually rewires the brain. Studies have found that regular practice increases positive emotions like joy, gratitude, and empathy, reduces stress and anxiety, leading to greater emotional resilience, diminishes feelings of anger and resentment, making it easier to forgive, strengthens connections with others, improving relationships. Imagine this scenario. You have a colleague who constantly criticizes your work. Normally, you would feel anger, frustration, or even self-doubt, but instead of letting these emotions take control, you practice metta meditation and silently repeat, "May they be happy. May they be free from suffering." At first, it feels forced, but over time, something shifts. You begin to see that this colleague, like all human beings, has their own struggles. Maybe they criticize others because they feel insecure themselves. Maybe they have personal issues that you don't know about. By changing your inner response, you stop feeding the negativity. And here's the most incredible part. Even if the external situation doesn't change, your suffering decreases because your relationship with your thoughts has changed. Breaking free from negativity. The beauty of loving kindness meditation is that you don't need to rely on others to change in order to feel at peace. Your happiness is no longer controlled by external circumstances, it comes from within. If you're struggling with negative thoughts, try this. Sit quietly for a few minutes and repeat the loving kindness phrases. Imagine your negativity melting away, replaced by warmth and compassion. Practice daily, even for just 5 to 10 minutes. And notice how your mindset shifts over time. When we stop feeding anger and resentment, they naturally weaken. When we cultivate love and kindness, they grow stronger. This is the path to true mental transformation. Meditation is not about escaping reality. It is about seeing it clearly and choosing how we respond. Through meditation, we can break free from negative thinking and create a life filled with more peace, love, and wisdom. Chapter 4. Reframing negative thoughts. Shifting your perspective. Have you ever caught yourself in a spiral of negative thinking? Maybe you made a small mistake at work, and your mind immediately jumped to, "I'm a failure." Or perhaps you received no response to a message and assumed, "They must be ignoring me because they don't like me." These types of thoughts are more than just passing worries. They are distorted thinking patterns that shape how we perceive ourselves and the world. If left unchecked, they can create unnecessary stress, anxiety, and self-doubt. But the good news is, just as our minds can develop harmful thought habits, they can also be trained to think in a more balanced, compassionate way. Buddhism teaches that our thoughts are not absolute truths, they are impermanent, ever-changing mental events. The moment we start questioning them and shifting our perspective, their power over us diminishes. Let's explore some common negative thinking patterns and how we can reframe them using Buddhist wisdom. 1. Catastrophizing. Assuming the worst possible outcome. Example: you make a mistake in a presentation, and your mind jumps to, "This is a disaster. Everyone must think I'm incompetent. My career is over." Reframing with Buddhist wisdom. Instead of seeing this one mistake as a catastrophe, recognize that it is a single moment, not a permanent reality. Ask yourself, is this mistake really as bad as I think it is? Will it still matter a year from now? Shift your thought. I made a mistake. But mistakes are how we learn. This moment does not define me. Buddhist perspective. Life is impermanent, every moment, including our failures, passes and changes. No single event has the power to define our entire existence. 2. Personalization. Believing everything is your fault. Example: your friend seems distant, and your immediate thought is, "I must have done something wrong. Maybe they're upset with me." Reframing with Buddhist wisdom. Recognize that not everything is about you. Consider alternative explanations. Maybe they had a rough day. Maybe they're lost in their own thoughts. Shift your thought. I don't know what's going on in their mind, but I can approach them with kindness instead of assuming blame. Buddhist perspective. The self is not as solid as we think. Buddhism teaches that we are deeply interconnected, but we do not control everything. People's moods and actions are shaped by countless factors beyond us. 3. All or nothing thinking. Seeing things as completely good or bad. Example: you try something new, and it doesn't go as planned. Your mind tells you, "I failed, so I must be bad at this. I'll never be good at it." Reframing with Buddhist wisdom. Life is not black and white, it is full of shades of gray. One failure does not mean you are incapable. Ask yourself, what did I learn from this? How can I improve? Shift your thought. I didn't succeed this time, but every master was once a beginner. Growth takes time. Buddhist perspective. The middle way teaches us to avoid extremes. Nothing is entirely good or entirely bad. Every experience contains lessons and opportunities. 4. Overgeneralization. Turning one bad event into a permanent pattern. Example: you get rejected from a job interview, and your mind jumps to, "I'll never get a good job. Nothing ever works out for me." Reframing with Buddhist wisdom. Recognize that one rejection does not mean you are doomed to fail forever. Ask yourself, is this really, never, or always? Or is it just this one experience? Shift your thought. This opportunity didn't work out, but there are many others ahead. Each rejection is a step toward the right fit. Buddhist perspective. The law of impermanence, anicca, reminds us that nothing stays the same forever. Just as a storm passes, so too will setbacks and disappointments. Breaking free from negative thinking. Step 1. Recognize the thought. Notice when a negative thought arises. Instead of blindly believing it, pause and observe it. Step 2. Question its truth. Ask yourself, is this thought 100% true? Am I seeing the full picture? Or am I distorting reality? Step 3. Shift the perspective. Replace the negative thought with a more balanced, compassionate one. Step 4. Let go. Just like clouds passing in the sky. Thoughts come and go. You don't have to hold on to them. Final thought. You are not your thoughts. Buddhism teaches that thoughts are like waves on the surface of the ocean. They rise. They fall, but they do not define the ocean itself. You are not your negative thoughts. You are the awareness that observes them. By practicing mindfulness and reframing, we can free ourselves from mental suffering and cultivate a mindset rooted in peace, wisdom, and self-compassion. It's not about eliminating negative thoughts altogether. It's about learning to see them for what they are and choosing not to be ruled by them. So next time your mind whispers, "I'm not good enough," pause and ask, "Is that really true? Or is it just a passing cloud in the sky?" Chapter 5. The Power of Gratitude. Transforming Negativity into Joy. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to focus on what's missing in life? We dwell on what we don't have, what went wrong, or what could be better. But when was the last time you truly paused to appreciate what you already have? Gratitude is a powerful antidote to negativity. When we constantly focus on what we lack, we cultivate dissatisfaction. But when we shift our focus to what we already have, we nurture contentment, inner peace, and happiness. Buddhism teaches that suffering often arises from craving, wanting things to be different from what they are. Gratitude helps us break free from this cycle by teaching us to find joy in the present moment. Gratitude is a mindset, not a circumstance. One of the most profound lessons in Buddhist wisdom is that gratitude is not about having perfect conditions. It's about having the right perspective. There's a story of a Buddhist monk who was once asked how he maintained such deep peace and happiness despite facing hardships, uncertainty, and discomfort. He smiled and replied, "Every morning, when I wake up, I take a deep breath and thank the universe for another day to practice compassion." His gratitude wasn't based on material things. It wasn't dependent on whether his day would be easy or difficult. Instead, it came from a mindset of appreciation for life itself. He didn't wait for perfect circumstances to be grateful, he simply chose gratitude. How gratitude rewires the mind. Modern science backs up what Buddhism has taught for centuries. Gratitude literally changes the brain. It reduces stress and anxiety. When we focus on what we appreciate, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin, chemicals that make us feel happy and calm. It shifts our focus from negativity to positivity. The brain has a built-in negativity bias, meaning it naturally pays more attention to problems and dangers. Gratitude acts like a mental, reprogramming tool, training our mind to notice the good instead of obsessing over the bad. It increases resilience. People who practice gratitude regularly are better at coping with challenges because they see difficulties as temporary rather than overwhelming. A simple gratitude practice to transform your life. One of the easiest and most effective ways to cultivate gratitude is the 3 blessings practice. Each day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. They can be big or small, simple or profound. For example, I am grateful for the kindness of a stranger today. I am grateful for the warm sunlight on my face this morning. I am grateful for my breath, which reminds me I am alive. Reflect on why each of these things is meaningful to you. This deepens your gratitude and prevents it from becoming just another routine. Feel the gratitude in your heart. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and allow yourself to truly appreciate these blessings. Over time, this practice rewires the brain to naturally seek out the good in life. Instead of dwelling on what's wrong, you begin to notice and appreciate the beauty in everyday moments, finding gratitude even in difficult times. It's easy to be grateful when life is going well. But what about when we face hardships? This is when gratitude becomes truly transformative. Imagine losing your job. The immediate reaction might be frustration, fear, or self-doubt. But through a gratitude-based perspective, you might begin to see the hidden blessings. This is an opportunity to explore new paths and find something even better. I now have time to focus on personal growth. Even though I lost my job, I still have food, shelter, and people who care about me. Or imagine facing an argument with a loved one. Instead of focusing solely on the hurt, gratitude can help shift the perspective. I'm grateful for this challenge because it gives us a chance to understand each other better. This conflict reminds me how much I value this relationship and want to work on it. Gratitude does not mean ignoring difficulties, it means seeing the full picture. Recognizing both the pain and the hidden lessons within it. Final thought. Gratitude is a way of life. At its deepest level, gratitude is more than just saying, "thank you." It is a way of seeing the world, responding to challenges, and living with an open heart. Buddhism teaches us that happiness does not come from getting everything we want. It comes from appreciating what we already have. When we embrace gratitude as a daily practice, negativity loses its grip on us, and we begin to experience life with greater peace, joy, and fulfillment. So, take a moment right now. What are 3 things you are grateful for today? Chapter 6. Overcoming Self-Judgment. Cultivating compassion for yourself. Have you ever noticed how harshly you speak to yourself? If you make a mistake, do you say things like, "I'm so stupid," or "I'll never get this right"? If a friend made the same mistake, you would likely comfort them with kindness. Yet, when it comes to ourselves, we often choose judgment instead of compassion. One of the most common sources of negative thinking is self-judgment, that inner voice that tells us we're not good enough, not smart enough, or not successful enough. This voice can be relentless, making us feel unworthy and stuck in cycles of self-doubt. But Buddhism teaches that self-compassion is not indulgence, it is a necessity. Being kind to yourself is not about making excuses, but about creating the right conditions for growth, healing, and transformation. Imagine a plant trying to grow in rocky, dry soil. No matter how much sunlight it gets, it struggles to thrive. Now imagine planting it in rich, nourishing soil. With the right conditions, it flourishes. Self-compassion is that nourishing soil for our minds. Why self-compassion matters. Many people believe that being hard on themselves will push them to improve. They think, if I don't criticize myself, I won't get better. But research and Buddhist wisdom show that the opposite is true. Self-compassion leads to greater motivation and resilience. Instead of feeling defeated by failure, we see it as an opportunity to learn. It reduces stress and anxiety. When we stop being our own harshest critic, we feel lighter, more at peace. It strengthens our relationships. The more compassion we show ourselves, the more we can extend that kindness to others. How to transform self-judgment into self-kindness. The next time you catch yourself being self-critical, try this 3-step practice to shift your mindset. Step 1. Notice the self-judgment. Before you can change a habit, you have to become aware of it. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. When do you judge yourself the most? Maybe it's when you make a mistake at work, when you look in the mirror, or when you compare yourself to others. Example: you forget an important meeting and immediately think, "I'm such an idiot, why can't I ever get things right?" Step 2. Reframe with kindness. Would you talk to a loved one the way you talk to yourself? If the answer is no, then change your words. Instead of tearing yourself down, offer yourself the same kindness you would give a friend. Example: instead of, "I'm such an idiot," say, "I made a mistake, but everyone makes mistakes. I'll learn from this and do better next time." Instead of, "I'll never be good enough," try, "I am doing my best, and that is enough." Your words shape your reality. Speak to yourself with compassion, and your mind will respond with healing. Step 3. Shift perspective through mindfulness. Buddhism teaches that thoughts are just thoughts, they are not absolute truths. When a self-judging thought arises, instead of blindly believing it, observe it like a cloud passing in the sky. Example: you think, "I'm not successful enough." Instead of accepting it as reality, pause and ask, is this thought really true? Or is it just my mind playing an old story? What is one thing I have achieved that I can be proud of? This mindful awareness helps break the cycle of self-criticism and reminds you that you are more than your thoughts. Self-compassion in action. The story of the broken pot. A Buddhist parable tells the story of a woman who carried 2 water pots every day from the river to her home. One pot was perfectly intact, while the other had a small crack and leaked water along the path. One day, the cracked pot sadly told the woman, "I am not good enough. Every day, I failed to carry all the water. I am broken." The woman smiled and said, "Look at the path behind us." The cracked pot turned and saw beautiful flowers growing along its side of the path, watered each day by its leaks. Without your cracks, these flowers wouldn't exist. Your imperfections have created something beautiful. You are already enough. Perfection is an illusion. The truth is, we all have cracks and imperfections, but those very flaws make us who we are. Self-judgment keeps us stuck in suffering, while self-compassion sets us free. If you take away just one thing from this, let it be this: you are doing your best, and that is enough. You are worthy of kindness, especially from yourself. What is one kind thing you can say to yourself today?